Alright, so we have ranked every single position, top 30 rankings. We've done point guard through center. Let's do an NBA current day head coach tier list today. So what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Yeah, I thought this would be a little bit easier just to rank these coaches in tiers instead of going 30 to 1 because there's really no objective stats. Now, we could go by winning percentage, but that really doesn't determine a head coach. Some of these coaches were dealt a bad hand. Some of these coaches did a lot more with a lot less than they were given. So yeah, we got a tier list here today. There's only 28 head coaches listed here. So yeah, there's 2 that aren't. We'll figure who they are out at the end, and then I'll throw them into tiers as well. So yeah, we have S through F. And let me know if you agree with these or disagree with these in the comments below. This should get interesting. So we're starting this off with Frank Vogel of the Phoenix Suns. Now, Frank Vogel won a championship with the Lakers during the bubble, was let go a little bit after that, spent a year outside the NBA, and now is back to coach KD, Booker, and Bradley Beal. So it isn't going to be easy for him, but he is going to have a good team. I think Vogel is a solid coach, but I don't know if he's one of the best in the NBA. So for now, I'm going to throw him into C tier. And we'll see if we end up moving him up to B or down to C. I think like that could be the average head coach, and I think Vogel is. I think he's a coach that I'm fine with on my team, but I wouldn't say he's like one of my top targets to go out and get. I do think that Nick Nurse is one of the better head coaches in the NBA, and I think he's a former coach of the year, won a championship with Toronto back in 2019, was let go from the Raptors this past year, and now is the Philadelphia 76ers head coach. He hasn't done a lot recently, but now playing with Embiid, Harden for now, Maxey. We'll see how he does in Philadelphia, and it could be pretty tough, especially if they move James Harden before the season even starts. So I wouldn't say that he's a gimme there. I could move him up to A. I can move Vogel up to B. We're going to see how this is at the end of it. So we got Darko Rajakovic, who is the new head coach of the Toronto Raptors now that Nick Nurse has left. I'll throw him in C tier. I mean, he doesn't really have a track record yet. So they're getting Rajakovic coming over from the Memphis Grizzlies. We'll see how he's going to perform there in Toronto. It's a good roster, but hey, they can go in a different direction as well. We'll see if they end up moving Pascal Siakam at some point. But he still has Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, and some other guys for now, for sure. Steve Kerr. Oh, man, okay. So Steve Kerr, now he has won a ton. He has won, 4 championships in Golden State now? But he was also dealt one of the best teams of all time. He inherited Mark Jackson's Warriors. It's not like he developed Clay and Curry and Draymond, and he didn't win it all for Team USA this summer. So him going up against the world, he didn't kind of show up. But I still think he is one of the better head coaches in the league. I can't knock a guy for winning 4 championships. 4 championships is still impressive at the end of the day. And yeah, he's going to be in that A tier for me. I think like if they beat the Lakers last year, and even if they lost to Denver, because Denver was the clear-cut best team in the Western Conference, but if they beat LA as the 6th seed, I mean, like, LA was the 7th seed, but I still would have been like, okay, Kerr's still that guy at the end of the day. Like, there's probably not much you could have done to beat Denver, but if you beat LA and still went to the Western Conference Finals with a disappointing regular season Warriors team, I would have been like, all right, he's still S tier at the end of the day. But I think there's like a clear-cut S tier of, I'm not going to say how many coaches, but yeah, I don't think that Kerr is in it. I think he is an A tier for now. Next up, we have Wes Unseld Jr. of the Washington Wizards. Now, unlike Kerr, I mean, hasn't been dealt the best hand in the world. Those Wizards teams haven't been any good, but have they overachieved at all? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's really done more than what he's been given with. Now, they're going to be even worse with Bradley Beal in Phoenix and Kristaps Porzingis in Boston. We'll see if they're going to ride out the rebuild with him still as the head coach. Is he going to develop Bilal Coulibaly and keep developing Kispert and Avdia, and then maybe Jordan Poole and Kuzma and Tyus Jones are going to make this team relevant again? I'm not too sure. I don't think that Wes Unseld is going to be the head coach of this team by the time the rebuild is done. But yeah, if we're ranking these coaches, he's at the bottom. He is. He hasn't proved much. He wasn't a Warriors assistant, Magic assistant, and I believe a Nuggets assistant before the Wizards job. But yeah, he's going to come in the D tier. I am sorry. All right, same thing with Adrian Griffin, a Raptors assistant going over to coach the Milwaukee Bucks. Mike Budenholzer is no longer there. I mean, last time a Raptors assistant got a head coaching job, Nate Bjorken of the Indiana Pacers lasted 1 year and was just a massive disaster for Indiana. But I'm going to give Griffin the benefit of the doubt. We'll see what he can do with Giannis and aging Middleton and Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez. But yeah, he hasn't coached an NBA game yet, hasn't had an NBA head coaching debut yet. So him and Darko Rajakovic are going to plop into that C tier. We'll see. I feel like Vogel does not belong in the same tier with these guys, so maybe Vogel goes up, maybe he goes down. We will see about that. Next up, we do have Willie Green of the New Orleans Pelicans. Honestly, I haven't loved what Willie Green has done so far, and I think he's had some disappointing seasons. Now, there have been immense amount of injuries in New Orleans to Zion and sometimes to other players as well, like Ingram and Valanciunas and some of the younger talent like Trey Murphy already hurt. So yeah, I'm gonna plop him in the C tier for now. I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's a bad coach by any means, and he was a really high touted assistant coming from Phoenix. I do think that Steve Clifford is one of the worst head coaches in the NBA. I'm very surprised he still has a head coaching job to this day. He's bounced around Orlando, Charlotte. Hasn't really had much success in the NBA. Now, I don't think he's coached the best teams in the world when it comes to talent, but at the end of the day, it's all right, maybe this guy isn't meant to be a full-on head coach, at least for this Hornets roster, right? Do you want a more defensive-minded head coach, a more player development focused head coach? Because I feel like Clifford had the problem before where he really wouldn't prioritize development, and that happened, I know, with the Knicks sometimes, where you have these raw prospects, going back to the Knicks, like Frank Ntilikina, Kristaps Porzingis, that need time to develop because they were raw coming out of overseas, and Kristaps worked out, but Frank did not. And I know Clifford had that kind of time in Orlando and Charlotte as well, where it can kind of go both ways with that. So yeah, one of the worst coaches in the NBA, in my opinion, out of the 30 ranked head coaches. Is he still a good coach? Does he deserve an assistant job pretty much till he retires? Yes, but I don't think he's a great head coach. Monty Williams, I do think, is a great head coach. He turned that team around in Phoenix and now just got a massive deal. He basically was going to retire or at least take a little bit of a hiatus from coaching. And Portland kind of begged him to come coach their team. They offered the bag at him. I think he's getting $15 million a year. He's one of the highest, if not the highest paid coach in the NBA. And I'm not saying it's not deserving because he's a top 5 coach in the NBA, in my opinion. So we got Monty Williams up there in A tier with Steve Kerr. I think Rick Carlisle is a good coach. But man, after that 2011 championship with the Dallas Mavericks and one of the best coach playoff runs ever, he did a phenomenal job, maybe one of the best coaching playoff runs ever, hasn't really done much since. And he spent a few years now in Indiana, which was a rebuilding team. I'm going to say Carlisle is maybe at the top of C, bottom of B right now. It isn't 2011 anymore. He's not coaching the greatest European player ever in Dirk Nowitzki. So I'm going to put him in C, and we'll see if I end up changing that, no pun intended. But yeah, we'll go from there. Next up, bro, I can't tell. Is that Jason Kidd? I deadass can't tell. If that is Jason Kidd, I think Jason Kidd is probably in the C tier as well. He did make it to the Western Conference Finals in 2022 with the Dallas Mavericks, in which they upsetted the Phoenix Suns, and he did a very good job coaching them there. But I still think he's had his flaws. He's had his flaws in Brooklyn. He had his flaws in Milwaukee. Somehow did not progress Giannis and develop him, which would have been the easiest thing for any coach. So yeah, he's going to be in the C tier for me. I still think he's a fine coach and definitely deserves that Mavericks job going forward. But yeah, that Mavericks team didn't make the playoffs last year as well. I mean, they had an abysmal defense, but still. Popovich will always be an S tier till he retires. I know the Spurs haven't been much throughout their rebuild, but what he's done throughout his career, and even I think they've overachieved sometimes as they were rebuilding as well. That team, the 7th seed in the 2019 playoffs, and they've been respectable. I mean, the Kawhi Leonard trade kind of set them back a little bit because they didn't really get a nice young return. They got DeMar DeRozan, which kind of made them in purgatory. So I think Popovich is still an S tier coach. I will fight on that hill. I think Mike Brown, the reigning coach of the year, is a B tier coach. Yeah, present day B tier coach. Brought the Kings to the playoffs. That alone puts you in B tier. So if you wanted to put him in A, I think that's fine with me, but I'm putting him in that tier with Nick Nurse. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is a great coach. I do think he's a D tier coach, but I think the Celtics roster is incredibly talented, but I guess this is his first year with them. This was supposed to be Will Hardy's job, and then Danny Ainge poached Will Hardy, and then Brad Stevens ended up becoming the GM. But yeah, for Joe Mazzulla, this also was Ime Udoka's job, and they didn't plan on him going. But yeah, I think Mazzulla is a D tier coach. I don't love him. Now that he's got better assistants this year, maybe he's going to get a better job this year for the Celtics. But I don't know what it is going to be. Are they going to lose in the conference finals again? Are they going to lose in the NBA finals? Who knows? But I'm not a huge fan of Joe Mazzulla as a head coach. I thought they should have went in a different direction, especially if Monty Williams was there for the taking. Nick Nurse was there on the market. There was a lot of good coaches that were there, top assistants as well, Kevin Young, Adrian Griffin. We're all there. Chris Quinn is still an assistant in Miami. And then there's other guys going forward. I think Tibbs is a B tier coach. I think Tibbs has his flaws, for sure. He won Coach of the Year in 2021, but he's made the Knicks respectable, and he's one of the best defensive-minded head coaches in the NBA, bar none. The thing that will always hold him back from being that A tier if he never wins a championship is he plays his guys way too much. But Nick Nurse also does that in Toronto. It's just been a thing with Tibbs. Back to his Chicago days, throughout Minnesota, and now with the Knicks. And I do think that will knock him a little bit. He overplays his stars. He overplays his top guys. It could be a blowout in the fourth quarter, and he's still playing RJ Barrett, Randall, and Brunson. Don't know why. But yeah, he's a B tier. I would put him behind Nick Nurse and Mike Brown. I think Quinn Snyder is also a B tier coach. I actually like him over Mike Brown. I think he was phenomenal in Utah. He kind of got thrown into the fire there in Atlanta, and they still made it like a competitive series against Boston in round 1. I don't think he's like maybe in that A tier yet, unless we see him do something with the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs, because he never really did it with Utah. They were always a respectable top seed, but either they lost to Golden State, either they lost to Harden and the Rockets. I mean, there was a monumental collapse against the Clippers, who didn't even have Kawhi Leonard in the second round of 2021, where he just got outcoached by Ty Lue and outplayed by Paul George with his stars. But yeah, I still think Quinn Snyder is one of the better head coaches in the NBA, so he's a B tier guy for me. I think Jacque Vaughn is probably a C tier coach. I think like he's nothing special. I don't think he's going to be there for the Nets long term, but I do think he's like a solid coach, and I think he's better than those guys in D tier. So he's a C tier coach for me. We got Jamal Mosley of the Orlando Magic. I'm kind of surprised that he's still the head coach of them, but now with them getting better and better, you know what, they're standing by him. I'm going to have to put him in D tier though. I don't think he's on the level of these guys in C. You know what I might do though? I think I may drop down, like just so we get some people in F, we're going to drop down Missoula. We're going to drop down, I guess we're going to drop down everybody here just because they're considered F-tier coaches. And then the D tier is going to be the unproven guys. So Vrjakovic and Adrian Griffin at the moment, and then maybe some other first-time head coaches. I don't know if there's any other ones that we'll see here. But yeah, I'm going to drop Mosley down into that F tier. It's crazy. It does seem like disrespectful to have Missoula because the Celtics did make it to the conference finals and lost in game 7. But man, did he have some boneheaded coaching decisions that were kind of inexcusable. So yeah, I'm going to keep him in F tier. Maybe that's a hot take from me. Ty Lue, I'm putting him in C tier. I think Ty Lue is an overrated head coach. Yes, he has one of the greatest finals victories as a head coach, the 2016 Cavs. But man, are we really going to say, like, he did a good job coaching. Don't get me wrong. But that team had prime LeBron James on it. Right. That prime LeBron James on it. And there's just been countless times since where they lost in the finals against the Warriors. Hey, any team would have done. But then ever since he, I think, joined the Clippers, it's kind of hurt his reputation. Now there's been some injuries, but that 3-1 choke job in the bubble against Denver, we got to knock on him for that. And yeah, I think the Clippers have been underachievers every year now. There have been injuries that have been out of his control. So I think he's a C. I don't know. I got 3 championship winning head coaches in the C tier of Ty Lue, Carlisle, and Vogel. So maybe we'll go back to that and change that. I honestly think Billy Donovan is an F tier coach. I don't like Billy Donovan as a head coach. It didn't work out in OKC. I don't really think it's worked out in Chicago. He hasn't had perfect teams with those two, but there have been plenty of talent. And maybe 2021 would have been the year that Billy Donovan would have proved himself. But I don't think, I don't know. It's tough to do. Maybe I'll put him in C. Because, like, that 2021 was good when Lonzo was healthy and they had DeRozan and Vucevic and Levine. But, man, I feel like Donovan has been disappointing. I do think he is a tier above those guys in F tier, though. So I think it would be unfair to put him in that F tier. One of the better coaches on the rise in this league is Mark Daigneault. I do believe he is a B tier coach. Overachieved last year with the OKC Thunder, and I think has done a phenomenal job developing that core with that OKC rebuild, which may be over this year. Like, the Thunder could make the playoffs, and they have one of the best young cores in the league, and I would be very happy with Daigneault running the show for me. I think he's a better coach than Tibbs, in my opinion. I think Darvin Ham is a better coach. I think he is a better coach than Joe Mazzulla, so I'm going to put him at... No, I do think that Darvin Ham is probably a tier below these guys. I do think that, like, Jacque Vaughn, Donovan, and Willie Green are definitely the end of these guys. I think, like, even... Yeah. You know what? I honestly would feel comfortable putting Vaughn, Donovan, and Willie Green in this tier. So it's like the unproven guys, right, of Vaughn, who I think did a fine job when they fired Steve Nash, but then maybe not great in the second half of the year, and I don't think the Nets are going to be great this year. Donovan and Green, yeah, I'm fine with that. And then we have Ham, who also made the conference finals, Mazzulla, Unseld, Mosley, and Clifford there in F tier. Taylor Jenkins is an A tier coach in my opinion. With all the off the court issues going on in Memphis, they were still a 2 seed in the Western Conference. Yes, they got upset in round 1, but he has really made the Grizzlies a powerhouse in the Western Conference, at least when it comes to the regular season, and I think he's one of the better overall head coaches in the NBA. I believe he does come from the Popovich tree as well, so yeah, very smart fella. Next up we have Mike Malone. I think Mike Malone is an A tier coach, just won the NBA Finals. I'd probably put him like ahead of Monty Williams because Monty Williams never won a championship, but I still probably have to put him behind Steve Kerr since Steve Kerr did get 5 rings with Golden State. I do think that Chauncey Billups is an F tier coach as well. Wow, we have a lot of guys in F tier. I did not mean for this to happen. Maybe I'll do this though. Yeah, maybe since like we're gonna get Billups in there. I actually don't like Billups as a head coach, so I will put Darvin Ham and Mazzulla there in D, and we'll have Billups Unseld, Mosley, and Clifford there in the F tier. Yeah, I know I'm changing this around. A lot of head coaches, right? It's tough to really evaluate these guys sometimes. And we got Eric Spoelstra, who will be my second S tier coach. Him and Popovich up there. You could say he's the best coach in the league right now in present day. He better be coaching the Olympics in 2024. For Chris Finch of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think he's probably... he's a bright mind, man. He is. And I think, he's been respectable enough where I'm going to put him in the C tier. I think the Timberwolves are back to being a respected team. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. They did lose in round 1 to a good Nuggets team, but I think that they're going to continue to get better, and I think we will realize that Chris Finch is at least a solid head coach in the NBA. So the 2 coaches not listed. All right, so lastly, let's rank JB Bickerstaff. Man, I think he's a good head coach. He's a good defensive-minded head coach. I'm going to throw him in C tier for now. Him getting outplayed by the Knicks and outcoached by Tibbs in the playoffs in round 1 last year, I think we'll dock him a little bit, but he is a good defensive-minded head coach, and if the Cavs could go to the conference finals or have a big first round, I think we can throw him up into B, but I think for now, we want to keep that C tier pretty open. So 2 head coaches not mentioned are Ime Udoka, the new head coach of the Houston Rockets. I would put him at the top of the B tier because he did go to the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics in his first year after being a top assistant on the market for many years. He's a strict head coach. I believe he's a player's guy as well, but hey, you got to be the adults in the room, and that's going to dock you as a head coach. And there was the off-the-court issues that got him fired in Boston. He signed briefly, or there was the rumor that he was going to go to Brooklyn. Everybody kind of clowned it. Now the Rockets picked him up, and it's a huge pickup for the Rockets, for that young, immature, kind of inexperienced Rockets team that really needs that leader. And I think Ime Udoka is going to be that guy for him. I would put him at the top of B, and I'd probably put Will Hardy, I think, in present day, end of B. Will Hardy's not mentioned here, so 2 former Celtics assistants or top guy. And yeah, I think Will Hardy would be at the end of B here. So I'm kind of looking at this again. I'm perfectly okay with my S tier. I'm debating if I wanted to put anybody else in A tier, but I'm cool with it being these 4 guys. I think if you wanted to drop Taylor Jenkins to B, I'd be fine with that. Now, looking at B and C, if you want to drop Tibbs down to C, I'm fine with that. It's not 2011 anymore for Carlisle. Vogel, good coach, but I think around average is pretty much where I would have him. I wouldn't say he's an elite coach. And I think Ty Lue is a little bit overrated. That's just kind of been something in my opinion as well. I got the 2 new head coaches of Darko Rajakovic and Adrian Griffin in D tier. We got Jock Vaughn, Billy Donovan, Willie Green, Darvin Ham, Joe Mazzulla. F tier, we got Billups, Unseld, Mosley, and Steve Clifford. And then we got Chris Finch, Jason Kidd, and Bickerstaff, Elton C. And then we also had Nick Nurse, Brown, Quinn Snyder, Mark Daigneault, and Tom Thibodeau there in B tier. So let me know what you guys think of this head coach tier list ranking in the comments below. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with. I'd love to realize, or find out what your top 5 coaches are in the NBA, or let me know maybe your top 5 and your bottom 5. I'd love to hear that. And drop a like if you guys do enjoy the videos on the channel. Very soon I will have my top 50 ranking for the 2024 season video out, so be on the lookout for that. And if you guys do enjoy these ranking and tier list videos, drop a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.